everybody. Welcome back to the SuperMassive podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Thacker, president of SuperMassive, joined as always by the founder of SuperMassive, Jason Sorotin. Jay, how you doing today, man?
What's up, man? How are you? Good to see you.
Always good to see you, man. I cannot complain. Just ready to talk about some more marketing fuck-ups.
You know I'm about that.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a fun, discussion, I think, last time. So for those who did not see, last time we discussed some faux pas in marketing from Zara and Bud Light. And me and Jay have some pretty strong opinions about it. So, we got a few more lined up here. And, I think we should just dive right in.
Let's do it.
So, starting off, Target's, essentially they were accused, a term I never heard before. I think it was made up exclusively for this, but rainbow capitalism in response to, had you heard that?
I hadn't, but that makes sense.
Right, got you. So rainbow capitalism, after they, we actually have a quick video here. I'm going to share it so that everybody can see, but it'll just, video.
I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, so I'm sure you might have seen.
I remember hearing about like transgender bathing suits for children. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play it. Not exactly. It's a little more all encompassing because they did like a whole campaign. Yeah.
Got it.
But here, let me.
If you've been following how Target has been pulling its Pride merch in response to conservative backlash and saying they're doing it to protect employee safety. But there's more to the story, and I guarantee it's going to piss you off. Target has invested millions in advertising so that we would forget this part of its history, namely that its entire Pride collection came as a response to years of protests and boycotts from members of the LGBTQ plus community, from Human Rights Campaign, Lady Gaga, other human rights organizations, because of Target's track record of funding anti-gay politicians. This is a great article. It goes way in depth, so I'm going to link to it. But read this part. This was written in 2016.
Okay, so that's the end of the clip there. But I mean, we pretty much get the notion, I think. So Target had a line of products that celebrated celebrated the LGBT community, and kind of similar to our Bud Light discussion, there was some backlash, and so they responded by pulling some of their products, in an effort to, I guess, make everybody happy or make that, those voices who were kind of screaming the loudest happy. But in turn, obviously, that offended the LGBT community. And as the clip showed, if you go back in their history, they've supported people with, what's considered to be anti-LGBT sentiment in their ideology. So, Jay, where do you fall on this? Because I have some opinions and some parallels I think of, but what do you think?
Wow. I mean, I wouldn't have, if it's my brand, I'm not going down that road, period. I think as I said last time, I think that brands should be inclusive, but it doesn't mean they have to be everything to everybody. It's just a slippery slope. And I also don't think that companies should make political investments. I mean, I think that's a risky thing for a brand. You're alienating, possibly, especially with the climate, half of your potential customers. I tell people all the time, when we did a study with one of my agencies about, people who had outward strong political beliefs in the medical field and a decrease in appointments and all of that since doing so, and a decline in business. And it's pretty overwhelming. People don't want politics tied into business. So why do they want it tied into their brand and political? Look, however you want to slice it, LGBTQ is political. right? It is a political thing that people are using now. I just feel like as a brand, like why do you even need to be in that? I think on Pride Week, you should say we support and respect all people, especially this month, the LGBTQ community, because it's their month or whatever it is. That's my take on it. I just would have stayed away. I don't think, why do they have to be, it's like when actors tell you what they think and feel. It's like, why?
Right. Well, because to a degree, I mean, actors, large corporations, they're basically all politicians at their core, right? They're here to serve people, and their bottom line is dependent upon the amount of people who are willing to be served by them, right? So I don't have a problem, and that's what I don't like about. I don't know if you ever. This is a hilarious D.L. Hughley quote. He might have gotten it from somebody else. I'm not sure, but he said, "I look at pimps, preachers, and politicians all as the same people because it's inherently exploitative, right?" And that's just the kind of the nature of business. How can I talk you into spending your money with me? And the
Right.
way I think the best people do that is by having something of value to offer. What I don't mind if a company takes a stance on something. My interest, I guess, or intrigue
As long as you
lives in
agree with it.
no, no, not at all. Because if I don't agree with it, I don't have to patronize them, right? Like it doesn't. I don't have to
But see,
if it affects me.
right, but now you are making a decision whether or not to patronize. So it's like, they shouldn't do it.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. I think the main thing is it hinges on authenticity. And most corporations are too worried about money to be authentic. But I feel like the things aside from like Target is obviously, there's a whole culture involved in it. People call it Target. It's like there's like a whole bougie. I mean, there are cultures that it's been embedded in the fiber of like American history for so long that I think it's standing is where it is, right? But I guess what I'm interested in discussing is the authenticity. Why not go the authentic route? So what if you lose some money? So what if you can't buy a jet? So what if you can't do some of these things that you may have been accustomed to because what you're valuing is that bottom line dollar. And
You're a
you
business,
don't
not a person.
but businesses are run by people. And I feel
Yeah,
like
but an
I
entity, how can an entity made up of, like Kimberly Clark, 50,000 employees worldwide, how
right.
can an entity represent all of those people? An entity should just be the entity. I mean, it's my opinion
Mhm.
on it.
I'm with you. I get you. And again, I don't have a problem with that. It's not all I'm saying is if people start taking stances, it needs to be genuine. If I decide right that I'm not going to work with like let's as an artist, right, or whoever, I say I'm not going to work with this brand because of this, right? They stand for something that I just can't get behind. There should be no dollar amount that changes my mind at that point, right?
That's what
So
Chick-fil-A did.
when
That's
you say that,
Chick-fil-A's stance. I'm saying that's a
oh,
brand that's
right.
living by it, and they've suffered, but they're standing
Well,
by their principles. But
but when
have
we
they
say
suffered?
that,
I know it's like,
yeah, because if you take I use this example. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but if you look at Dave Chappelle or you look at some of these other comedians, right, who are like constant fodder for like controversial subjects, the reason that they're able to continue is because they built their brands on authenticity. The people who support them, they didn't see them in something that has nothing to do with the core of who Dave Chappelle is. And now when he acts outside of that behavior pattern, we want to tear him down. He can keep getting $60 million deals from Netflix because the people who support him are going to continue. He's already built that equity in terms of being genuine with his crowd, right? So, and that's the shit that lasts. That's what lasts. A brand is going to last the longest when they standing on a real principle, because people are going to look at that and connect with it in a way that's like, man, I want to keep supporting you, right? But when you turn around, okay, this to me, when you pull it off the shelves, that's the same as, well, we didn't do this with a real ethic in the first place. We just did it because we wanted to get some money. Oh, you mean that if we do this, we're gonna lose y'all money? Oh shit, we ain't mean that. My bad. I take it back. To me, that's lame. That's corny. But I know that morals and principles don't always equate to the business world, right? But I just that's my biggest thing. Is like, in my perfect world, I wish we could just all be authentic about why we do shit, right? Because then what that means is now we're doing things for the right reasons, and I'm not gonna get $1 million or whatever, this crazy payday that might be good for now, but I've built it on a house of cards. You see what I'm saying? Like the foundation is. That's why, like, I don't agree
Well,
with,
is it,
with
it would it would
but
it what if you don't celebrate Christmas, right? And you own a store and you sell Christmas items? Is that inauthentic?
no, because it's not a stance. See, it'd be different if your stance is, uh, that you like, like if you're in a, I know this is an extreme, but if there was a KKK for Christmas, right? That's different, right? But we're talking about now a holiday, like that's not a, you're not stepping outside of your principle by selling that.
But
But
whose principle is it? You're talking about the marketing. Is it the marketing manager at Target's principle? They were just like, you know what we should do to make money? We should do blank. I don't think that it was deeper than that. I don't think, there might have been people who were like, we have to do something to celebrate gay pride. And someone was like, cool, let's do this thing. I also think it will make us a lot of money. I don't think
yeah,
anybody
but do you
thought
think
about
that's what happened
pandering. I
though?
don't.
So you feel
Yes.
like they were authentic. Now here's where I would
I don't
disagree
think
with
it
you.
was authentic. I think it's the marketing cycle. We sit in
But
a
that's it.
room,
Yeah.
and we're like, what holidays are coming up? What blank is coming up? What are our tentpole events? What are this? Oh, it's gay pride. We should celebrate that because that's what good brands do. Right. But that didn't come from like the CEO is not at Target, is not sitting around going, gay pride month's coming. I can't wait. They're not thinking that way. It just doesn't
But
work
but
like
what you but what you just said is that though. Because it's not, hey man, this means something to us. Let's invest in it in a way that actually demonstrates that. All you're saying is that by nature of business, it's inherently phony. And if that's the case,
yes.
then cool. But then you got to be prepared for when you make decisions that's phony, for people to say, hey, you a phony. And then
But
when it's
isn't that
time,
every brand? I mean, come on. That they're all pandering. I can't think of one brand off the top of my
Chick-fil-A,
head.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. They're not pandering, but that's in the wrong. I mean, in my opinion,
But
on
but
the wrong side.
but hey, look, I'm not that is not an endorsement of Chick-fil-A. I don't share that same belief. I'm not Christian, none of that shit. I don't have the same I don't have that same thing. So I could disagree with them, right? But at least they being
You
authentic. And
respect
they don't
that.
care. I respect they don't, it's not about the money. Because on this
That's
side
why.
of it, it's like
And you're right. They're
you
not
can't have
open
it both ways.
Sundays either.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do it. It can happen. It can be done. But people put money
Is there
before.
any? Is there any other brand?
Hey man, I'll give you an example. This is a smaller brand, right? This is someone who I know. They're not as they're I won't say any names, but these are some guys who host a very prominent um uh they do a lot in the community in Fulton County, South Fulton, East Atlanta, pretty much all around the perimeter of Atlanta, right? Black owned. Somebody came to them with an offer from a big brand, and they said, and it was literally, we're talking like let's say a major food chain, who saw the things these guys were doing in the community and wanted to associate themselves with that, to what businesses do, co-opt their credibility, right? They came to him and they were offering these guys more money than they had ever made on any other project. And the dudes turned it down because these guys they're commonly found in lower income communities, and they sell poison, right? They sell, it's a fast food chain, and the you know food that they sell is a direct correlation to health disease in the black community, black and brown communities. So they told him, "No, man, I can't do this. I can't make a song for your brand. We can't do a this for your brand because you kill our people." You know what I'm saying? That's that's power. That's power. And even though they may not have made that same amount of money, all them folks who fuck with them and know that they made that decision, they got them for life, bro. They got them
Look,
for
I'm
life.
not
So
saying
that's
that wasn't the right decision. I'm just saying that it'll be very rare that you find a business that is like hugely successful that is making those decisions, especially with larger teams. That's what I'm
yeah, yeah,
saying. Like the ideas, I think I know who you're talking about, and I that makes total sense, and I respect the shit out of it. I'm just saying that that's the rarity.
yeah.
That like
I get it, but
we're
you go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean I was just kind of going to wax poetic. So it's good.
Go ahead. That's what it's a podcast. That's what it's for.
No, no, I want to hear what you have to say. I forgot now.
Well, no, because I was just gonna say, the points you're making ain't wrong. I get it. Like you're right. It's like the question becomes, what are we doing this for, right? And in no scenario where money is the root of it, does it ever, like, in any scenario, has that ever ended well? Like, you make judgment calls on a daily basis, right? For in terms of, you're a serial entrepreneur. You have, fucking 10 times more experience than me, right? In this. So I totally get where you're coming from. But in all of your experience, what would you say led you to the best possible outcome? Was it prioritizing money? Was it prioritizing maybe an ethic? Maybe it was prioritizing another approach that we're not saying now, because I get that there's nuance, but it's more of an open-ended question because I'm genuinely curious to pick your brain.
I prioritize passion and what I like to do. And then I know from being poor growing up and poor through college and all of that, that money is really important to
Sure.
freedom and the ability to do the things that you want and to continue to do the things that you want. So
Yeah.
I'm always thinking of that. But, I got to be honest, some of my decisions haven't led me down the best path. And so, this talk of authenticity, you know, I, I get it. I mean, if I was authentic, I don't about everything, right? About
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I'm doing. I, I feel like, what is that anymore? Like, what is my authentic self when you've been in business and in sales and like playing the game? Like sometimes you're a little bit of a chameleon for what people need you to be. And I
Sure.
think that causes its own batch of issues. And I've been watching a lot of Jim Carrey talks about this losing sense of self and like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
playing that role a lot. And I think that all plays into it. So I don't know where we got off on this tangent, but
Well, because the idea being that we were talking about before, if you're a business, most of the time how business operates, they operate with the bottom line in mind, right? That's the main thing. So I'm just asking because, like I said, I can speak to my personal experience, but I feel like I'm a bit of a, as they say, a neophyte in the game.
yep.
I've been in business for myself for several years, but I'm 32. You know what I mean? I feel like I still feel like I'm learning and kind of bumping my head through things, and
That doesn't stop.
failure. Yeah,
It
right.
doesn't
But
stop,
it's
especially in marketing. You're constantly bumping your head and there's constantly things changing. But on that
Yeah.
note, let's move to the next one because I got 13 minutes to our next call. I feel like we can do a. I
Got you.
think we can
Okay.
get a good
Sorry.
one
Sorry.
there.
Okay. Cool. So we have. Okay, we talked Target. Well, you said you had 13 minutes. You know what? We wanted to talk about this last time, so we could do this. Snoop Dogg goes smokeless. So
This had me
the
all
idea,
twisted.
right? Snoop Dogg puts out a clip, not a clip, excuse me. He puts a post online, says he's no longer smoking, right? And as we all know, Snoop Dogg is the poster child for marijuana. He's right up Cheech and Chong, Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg. They're like the three-headed snake of cannabis, cannabis influencers. So he comes out and he makes it this big thing. He's like, please respect my privacy during this time. Right. So it makes it seem real sincere and people are like coming out like, oh man, dude, I've had to take a tea break too, man. Meek Mill comes out and says, yeah, man, the weed, you gotta put it down sometimes, blah, blah, blah. And then, well, let's just go ahead and play the ad real quick.
I have an announcement. I'm giving up smoke. I know what you're thinking. Snoop, smoke is kind of your whole thing. But I'm done with it. Done with the coughing and my clothes smelling all sticky icky. I'm going smokeless. Solo Stove Fix Fire. They took out the smoke. Clever.
You told me that the CEO got fired.
So no, so the yes, CEO of Solo Stove steps down following Snoop Dogg's Smokeless Fire Pit campaign. So the interim CFO said that Solo Stove sales did not meet what they had planned, and with increased marketing investments, it negatively impacted revenue. So essentially, they spent a ton of money on a Snoop Dogg cameo, and in their mind, it didn't do what they needed it to do. They didn't see sales go through the roof. And I can imagine the CEO, or somebody just being like, guys, this is a foregone conclusion. This is no brainer. We should do this. It's Snoop, and just thinking, whatever. And then, like we talk about bottom lines, didn't make the amount of money it was supposed to. But with that
Timing is
said,
everything.
timing for sure.
Timing is
And
everything because think about it. If he would have launched that in 2020, when people were buying the shit out of outdoor stuff and like people were looking for things to do outside and people had expendable income, I just think it was the wrong time. I don't think it had anything to do with Snoop. I think the campaign was great because it made you think of Solo Stove. Because when I heard, I was like, holy shit. Oh my God. Thank God. I thought he was really quitting, and that would have been like the end of an era. So it's like, I just did not want to hear that. And I was like, that's really clever. I thought it was clever. It made me give a shit about Solo Stove. I think that guy deserves an award. Like,
Hey man,
what's not to dig about that? And he gave himself props. He's calling the spot clever in that last line that he says. I love it.
It's genius. No, I mean, because the idea, here's what we have to realize. And I never, not to keep bringing up Dave Chappelle. He was like, I'm like the NBA. I'm like a basketball player. I get paid for the attempt. You know what I mean? So the idea is when you're going out in uncharted territory, you don't know what's going to work for real in a real way. If we really look at what business is, right? It's a bunch of people trying to pick the bones off of what somebody did previously, right? That's why you have to respect campaigns where they clearly thought outside the box. This, to me, there is no room to trim the fat on this. This is a brilliant ad. The fact, like you said perfectly, the fact that this was not the time that people were planning to buy a Solo Stove does not change the fact that objectively this is genius. And you definitely don't get rid of somebody with that level of ideation, right?
Yeah, who now, I bet if you did a poll, I would love to see the research of like, okay, nationwide, how many people knew about Solo Stove before the Snoop Dogg ad versus after? Like, okay, so you didn't sell a lot now. Now take that and build on it. right?
You
I
just
like this,
you
you use it. You've got Snoop mate. Now, maybe Snoop was too expensive and they couldn't, but come up with a bit off of that. Like there's so many
exactly.
things that you can do. And I just think that, people get scared when things don't work out exactly how they want. And you see this all the time in search engine optimization because it takes so long. You'll be doing search engine optimization for 6 months and the client's really not seeing anything because it takes time to develop. But when it develops, man, you really feel it. But people don't have the patience sometimes and they call it quits too early. And I think
Yeah.
this is just another case of impatience. Or look, who knows how much he actually spent? Maybe he spent really poorly. Maybe that ad cost $20 million and they would have had to sell, I don't know, 100,000 solo stoves to make any money. And they just didn't. Who knows? But
Yeah.
from an idea perspective, I don't think that guy will have a hard time finding a job.
Yeah, that's the hope, man. You would hope so. And then you hit the nail on the head, bro. It's the long game. It is the long game, man. I didn't know who the fuck Solo Stove was before this. But you know how many millions of people could say the exact same thing? Like you just said, now we know. Build on that. Play the long game. You might have broke the bank doing that. Do some shit that ain't gonna cost no money that could keep that sort of theme going. I mean, you got millions of eyes on you. Literally, the whole world was, at
Free
least all of
pre-roll with
America.
every solo stove.
Come on, man. Come on, man. CBD for the states where it's not legal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Come on, man. That
Or a
is
voucher,
see.
like do a partnership with dispensaries, like dive into it,
That is
right?
genius. Yeah.
I, or
Yeah.
do a fucking YouTube commercial. Oh, this is it, dude. Do a YouTube series of people sitting around a solo stove, smoking a joint together, telling stories.
Dude, come on, man. Come on, man. You could probably man, I don't know Snoop Dogg like that, obviously. But even with all of this controversy stuff that it caused, imagine calling him and saying, hey, man, look, we blew the bank on this. But this shit got a lot of attention and it was very polarizing. Would he be down to what you just said? Would he be
Nope.
down to come back and just smoke one around the store? Yeah, he's
Nope.
not going to do right.
I mean,
Dude,
but look, good on him. Like,
yeah.
I can't wait to be in a place where I can be like, no, I don't even breathe for free. I'm not doing that. That sounds excellent. Good for him. But it's on Solo Stove to figure that out. It's not on Snoop Dogg. They got to go to him and be like, hey, we found $1 million. We want to do one more thing. Can you give us 3 hours?
Yeah,
And he'll
man.
probably say, yeah, for
They
3
should have been
million.
able to command. They should have been able to command that level of investment just off the number. There's no way. Like we've done projects where we've had to track down the number of impressions that a campaign has got. We do that all the time, right? So, like you can't even. There's not a metric alive that
2
could
billion.
probably
That's my
accurately
guess.
tell you how.
2
Right.
billion
Well, I'm saying,
impressions over like 3 weeks. That's my guess.
I mean, it
More
may
than
be
that,
more than
maybe,
2
right?
million. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's
Because
no
think
way.
about how many people, okay, yeah. Think about how many people did blogs about it, did podcasts about it, did little TikToks and Instagram videos about it. I mean, that is holy shit. That's all these people. And then, maybe it was part of the marketing move to fire or have the dude step down too, because that's another level of controversy. Maybe
Keep
he was like, look, I'm going to do this thing. We're going to take it to here. I'm going to get a big payout. I'm going to fall on a sword and I'm going to laugh all the way to the bank, go pick up my next gig.
Hey, man,
And if that's not his story, that's what he should tell his next employer.
that's chess. But and to the concept of, I love that. That's not the story. Tell his next employer. That would be the story when I moved on from this shit. Yeah. No.
Exactly.
Nah, man. See stuff like that. That's what I mean. They didn't have to pander to anybody. The most they did was expose how many people who've never met Snoop Dogg give a fuck about his smoking habits, right? Like, and I feel like that even speaks to, I think, a common thing, or something we haven't discussed. We may not have time today, but audience reaction, right? Like, to what degree does a negative response mean that it was a failure of a campaign? Right? Because there was so many people who were like, it was people who were mad. I think our business partner Daniel, remember he said there were folks who were like, hey man, we feel like you betrayed our trust. And it's like, if you think about it, I don't know you. I don't you know what I
Who
mean?
gives a shit?
I don't give a shit, right? But it's
But
interesting to
people
think
think like
because
that.
that's what I'm saying. Even though that's not my personal perspective, that's not a singular thought. A lot of people took it that way. And I feel like if you were to poll the masses, it's probably a good bit of folks who feel like something like that actually fucking matters. It's like that's an interesting discussion, I think, man. How do you feel about that? Like, to what extent is to what extent does a negative response always mean that the campaign failed?
I wouldn't even know where to start on that because the world responds like crazy to negative publicity, and it sometimes is to great benefit to the brand, because for every negative there's half the population who's probably like, yeah, fuck, I love it.
People, what they say, I can't look. The whole the train wreck. Like, I can't look away. Like, and I mean, like you said, that opens up a whole different can of worms. But I think we talk so much about principle in the beginning, and I use this, just as a final thought. We can kind of wrap things up. We talk a lot about principle and ethics and stuff like that. But the truth is, I think that everything is nuanced. All of it is a case by case basis, and factors as big as a multi-million-dollar influencer on the case, or factors as small as the average person's whim at a moment's notice, can influence marketing. So it's an interesting juxtaposition, man. I think as long as shit keeps happening, we'll have more stuff to talk about. And of course, we have our own stories to share, but that will be for another episode. Just to bring things to a close, Jay, appreciate you for joining me as always. Guys, if you are in need of any marketing services, digital, traditional, consulting across the gamut, please visit supermassiveimpact.com. And if you feel like we'd be a right fit, don't hesitate to send us a contact form, or submit to our contact form, and you'll hear something back within the day. With all that said, my name is Harrison Thacker.
I'm Jason Sorotin.
And this is the Supermassive Podcast. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time.